circle around it. I'm actually standing here in a commercial building, but you can see the huge commercial Norwest Business Park behind me. Lesson number 20 is all about commercial versus residential property. I think one has to be very specific and has to really understand that there's huge differences between them. People often talk about the property market as a whole, and I think it's one that one has to understand that there's huge amount of differentiation. Even segments of the residential market, in the commercial market, you've got the retail, the industrial, the light industrial, the shopping centres, the office parks. There's a huge amount of difference between them and which ones are working and which ones aren't. I think the biggest difference for me when one looks at it is firstly in terms of financing. It's very different in terms of financing. You're looking at 20, 25 and 30-year loans overseas for residential, and on commercial you're looking, in Australia here at 10-year loans, and in England it can sometimes be a little bit more. But the big thing is that there's a massive difference. The yields are slightly different. Here in Australia you're looking at yields of 8 or 9% on commercial property. On residential property you're looking at yields of about 5%, but when you take capital growth into account you're looking at an internal rate of return of 14 or 15%, so it takes different things into account as to what you can expect. With regards to capital growth, you've got to be careful. In the UK the commercial property market's gone down by 44%. Some of the biggest opportunities there are where the property funds have actually overexposed themselves. They've broken their financing mandates where their loan to values were 65%, and they actually have to sell off some of their best assets, and that is where there's been phenomenal opportunities. But generally with commercial, you have to, it's a large amount of money that you need to put down to be able to buy those opportunities. They're not for the average investor, but there have been some phenomenal opportunities, and some of our biggest not residential, but property funds in South Africa have picked up some real blue chip investments in and around. Residential obviously is more aggressive and more advantageous to the average investor because they can get access to financing, they can manage it. There's also less risk because it's easier to find a tenant for a residential property than it is for a commercial property. But it all comes back to knowledge, it all comes back to the partners and the information that you get. So at the end of the day, whether you're investing in a commercial building like this one behind me here, or in these beautiful residential buildings like this one behind me, it all comes down to the commercial. Who is your tenant? It's the quality of the lease that you're actually signing, and also the potential to get further tenants in that particular zone. Residential, once again, that's where you need to look at infrastructure, population growth, supply and demand, and the basic demand in the area. Now, that's a real brief overview in 3 minutes, but I think lesson 20 is so important for people to understand. Also, to understand the fundamentals. The average investor want to go after residential, the big investors want to go after commercial. In places like Australia, UK,